So can I share the screen for the answers? We have got quite a few answers. Wow. We have got almost 100% people excited to learn something. Yes, even I'm excited because even I'm going to learn something from you all. Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. Today's topic is, as you all know, Introduction to Live Virtual Training. It's challenging. And we are going to cover up 5 main aspects on. We are going to cover up on the 5 main aspects of today's topic, live virtual training, in-person training and live virtual training, the differences and similarities, identifying the challenges and advantages of virtual training, preparing to train virtually, effective live virtual training practices, and developing a credible digital persona. So we'll just get into the first thing, that is similarities and differences. We had got so used to the bookish type of knowledge. We had this one-to-one presentations. When we had a live presentation in the classroom type of setting or in an auditorium or a banquet hall. So because of the time changing and of course the situation that has forced us to go into live virtual training, it's opened up a lot of horizon for us. But again, there are certain similarities between both, and that is in person and in virtual training. Both the participants, in both the ways, they get information. Information is gathered. But while in live virtual training, it's conducted in different parts of the, you can be in a different part of the world and yet be present in that training. Again, over here, it's like in virtual training, even over here, it's a well-designed curriculum. Over here also, the faculty is given a topic in advance so that he or she can prepare on that topic. And of course, and it's a relevant one, be it in Alliance or otherwise also, the topics are relevant to your day-to-day usage. Like over here, we are all learning something. This training, this virtual live training is something that we are learning because we have been actually forced into getting into it. Even though Zoom platform was there, we did not actually venture out into it because of n number of reasons, but now we are forced to get into it and we are learning. And of course, we need internet connectivity when we have to go in for virtual trainings. It includes visual aids. Over here also, when we were training, when it was a physical training, we used visual aids so that it was more impactful. The way we trained was more impactful. Likewise, even in virtual training, it is impactful. And of course, it's managed with different devices. Of course, we need to know what kind of device we are going to use so that we are able to deliver our topic efficiently. We require a prepared faculty to facilitate the topics. Whether it is in person or virtual, the faculty needs to know about what the topic is, at least if not 100%, because every faculty learns something new with every training, but at least he or she needs to have ample knowledge so that they are able to answer the queries of the participants. And of course, the benefits are, like I already mentioned, varied groups from different geographical areas. Like yesterday, I had a training with Sri Lanka, and I was in Mumbai. We had participants from Sri Lanka, and of course, a few participants were from Italy. So it's like from all various geographical areas, people can attend sitting at home itself or in the comfort of your own place. But when we come to the challenges, there are many challenges, and first thing is undefined expectations, because we really don't know what kind of expectations the person who is sitting on the other side of the platform really has in his or her mind, what kind of thoughts they have when it comes to when they are facing challenges, or when they have a faculty. When you are face to face, it so happens that you are able to gauge what's going on, whether the participant is really interested or not interested. But over here we don't know what exactly is the expectations, and getting participants engaged, it becomes really difficult, because usually people off the videos, so we really don't know what they're going behind the scene or behind the screen. Most of the times when the host requests the participants to on the video, it's on for some time and then off the video, so we really don't know whether they're doing multi-facet work or they're really sitting in the meeting and attending the session. We really don't know. So getting participants engaged is a big challenge. So we always need to find ways, activities, so that they get more and more involved. Unexpected events. There might be technological events that crash down and then you're not able to give your presentation properly. There is sometimes voice problem, there is internet connectivity problems, and sometimes the participants don't know how to log in, so they have all these issues coming up. So all these unexpected things come up, and so we need to see to it that yes, we are able to help them out. Of course, when it comes to emotional bonding on the virtual media, this is lacking because there is no emotional connectivity with the participants. While in a live training, where it is in an open forum, people are there, they know that they have real people with them in the classroom or in the hall, so that this bonding becomes very difficult when it comes to virtual trainings. That's the biggest challenge that we face. Even the participant as well as the presenter both have this issues, because this lack of emotional connectivity with the participant, vice versa. There are again many advantages when it comes to virtual training, and like it's already mentioned, anywhere, anytime, any place, we can take this virtual learning session. Like being over here present in Mumbai, we have participants from Parvano, we have participants from Goa, we have from Bengaluru, Hyderabad and Delhi and other places also. So anytime, any place, provided the time zone matches our session. So this is one advantage when we come to our e-learning or virtual trainings. Creative teaching, of course, over here our creativity, we have to be more creative when we are presenting, so that not only the presentation looks attractive for the participant to sit and browse through the session, but also when we are presenting, we also feel that yes, we have done our creative best. Of course, we can put in clippings. Of course, when we were in a live training session, physical live training session, we could also be creative, but over here we have to be much more creative, thinking out of the box, bringing in games, online games or activities, so that the participants are involved with it. And of course, level playing fields over here, we can bring in faculties or knowledgeable persons from anywhere across the globe. Previously, we had to spend money in case we had to call in a faculty or a presenter who was knowledgeable in our particular field, who was an expert. Over here today, sitting in your own city, you can bring in experts from other areas, from other countries also, to help you present better. It can be also two-way conversation. When we have, like in a webinar, it's one way, but in Zoom, if we have two faculties also together, we are able to converse with them and interact with them. Networking opportunities also increases, because we are sitting at home and then we are working. Rather, when I entered the room, Zoom room, there were people talking about working from home. So working from home, you're able to not only do your own work, but you're able to network with many people, getting more and more opportunities. Like I can give my own example. I being in Mumbai, you gave me an opportunity to be a part of your training. So this is a networking type of opportunity. Each one is getting us. High quality dialogues over here in the chat box. Usually when we are in a physical training session, people are shy to answer. But over here, when I ask you to put an answer in the chat box, you might be hesitant at the beginning, but when you see that people are answering and you are nowhere visible, you also will learn to interact and chat. So that way it is not only enriching your knowledge, but it's motivating you to participate. So again, there is a high quality dialogue exchange over here. And of course, access to resources. When it is in a physical training classroom, if you are present over there, only then you are able to listen to the trainings or learn something. But over here, the Zoom meetings are recorded, or whatever the virtual webinars are all recorded. So in case you are not present, and if you have a recording, at any given moment, you can listen to it and you can add on to your own knowledge about that particular training. So this is another advantage of going online or virtual trainings. When you're preparing for virtual trainings, we need to be very careful about certain things. We need to get first in contact with the host who has invited us. Like Kallam Krishna sir told me that you need to give a presentation on introduction to virtual training. So I knew what I was supposed to talk on. It was not on a random topic. Of course, the participant list, sir had it with him, so I did not ask him about the participant list. But I did have a little knowledge about, because I was in the group, I had a little knowledge about the participants. Not much, but yes. So at least I was aware. I mean, I'm going to talk with a group of people, lions who are very intellectual, and I have to prepare my presentation likewise. Create a communication. Sir has been communicating through WhatsApp, sending messages, and likewise he had also requested me that you can also share the link with your friends. So this communication, we need to create this communication so that our training session becomes a success. Likewise, when you yourself are conducting a training session, you need to keep all these things in mind also, that the more you communicate with people, the more you will have inputs and people will share their thoughts and ideas with you. So this also is the most important aspect, apart from, of course, establishing content or the participant list. Sometimes the participant list goes overboard. We might have initially 25 people who have registered, but then later on we get to know that we have 75 plus or something like that. So participant list can change, the number can change, but at least we will have a communication. When we have established communication, we know what type of a crowd we are going to address. So we can likewise present ourselves. Necessary hardware and software. Like for example, we have pools in the Zoom platform, but in case we have to use a Zoom pools, if we have to take the permission of the host, or we need to give him or her the data that yes, we want to do this pooling. So we have to use this pooling booth from your own side on the Zoom platform. So whatever hardware or software we require, we need to tell the host who has invited us that yes, I will need all these facilities when I am coming on a virtual training platform. Apart from that, we need to conduct rehearsals. In spite of conducting n number of rehearsals, we tend to have some flaws somewhere. So we need to overlook those tiny flaws and go on the platform with more confidence that yes, we'll deliver it perfectly. Of course, as each and every session we become more and more efficient in that particular topic. But the more we rehearse, the more we know where we are lacking behind, so that when we go officially onto the presentation, on the day of presentation, we are prepared about it. And like online activities, when we started, I had this ice breaking energizer just to gauge the mood of the participants. We can have online activities. There are many sites like Mentimeter, Padlet, and even PowerPoint presentation also has this function wherein we can have activity games, and we have WooClap. So these, we can make use of these virtual activity links so that to involve our participants. And this is the most important thing. After each session, we need to take a feedback so that we know where we are standing. And of course, the takeaways, when we have a takeaway, so that we know, yes, we have learned something in today's session. So this also is important when it comes to virtual training. The effective live virtual training, it always needs to be from a quiet background. We shouldn't have this background music coming in with if you are training from the house, there shouldn't be the vessel noise coming or the dog barking or music. So we need to be in a very quiet location so that we do not disturb the participants, and even our link when we are presenting does not get broken, because many times with the sound from the back, or when we have participants unmuting themselves and then they're talking, it disturbs not only the presenter but even the participants. So we need to take care of all these things, that yes, being in a quiet background, having a background that is not disturbing, people are not going out of the focus. Many a times we have backgrounds that instead of attracting the attention of the presenter, what the presenter is actually giving the presentation on, we are more looking at the background. So we need to keep all these things in a way that it does not disturb anyone. We need to be more courteous to our participants. Many a times when we ask the participants, you can unmute yourself and give your answer. It so happens that in between the participants answering, we try to cut him or her off, and then it's like an insult to the participant. Either you don't give this opportunity of unmuting themselves and answering, or you can put the answer in the chat box and tell them, okay, I'm giving you 1 minute's time. So within that 1 minute, you have to give that answer. So that way, at least you're courteous enough to the participants, and they will feel that yes, the efforts they have put in to answer, think and answer, has not gone down the drain. So we need to be very courteous. We need to take care of these small little things when we go on a virtual training platform. You need to make your session professional. It's not only about the presentation, the way you present yourself, the slide presentation, but the way you present yourself also. Just coming and sitting and then giving a presentation does not create an impact. If you have to create an impact, you also need to be professionally attired, in a proper attire, so that people feel that yes, you have come over here to conduct your session professionally, apart from of course the presentation side. And of course you need to have a knowledge about what you're presenting. Build a rapport with the participants. We always need to do that, especially when it comes to Zoom platform, because we are addressing unknown faces. Like, I don't know most of the people from your district, but at least because I had interacted with Kallam Krishna Reddy sir, at least I know that yes, I know him, so I can address him by his name and tell, okay sir, because of you I am over here. Or I know Lion Vinit Goel ji over here, and a couple of other friends. So if I give them, if I address them by the name, they will feel that yes, there is a rapport building between the participant and the trainer or the presenter. So we need to build this rapport with the participants. We should use notes, because many a times we tend to forget about what is going to come next, or if we have a activity lined up in the session, we get so carried away with the presentation, we forget about the activity part or something like that. So having notes is always a positive sign. It's not that you need to read. Yeah, reading from the note is not right, because it's like you're not doing anything. It's like putting everything on the slide and then you're reading it out. It does not create an impact. But if you have bullet points and then if you elaborate on those bullet points, it will create an impact. And using notes also is a way of creating impact. And of course, eye contact. When we are usually on a Zoom platform, we really don't know how to actually look into the camera. We need to practice that. Many a times we sit in such a way that we are half out of focus. The camera is half on us and half out of the focus line. So we need to take all these small things into consideration. So when you go on to a Zoom platform or any other online training live platform, you need to take all these things into consideration. You need to adjust your camera or your sitting arrangement in such a way that everything is in proper focus, including the lights that fall on your face. It shouldn't be that the entire thing is outshadowed. So we need to take, again, as I said, all these things into consideration. First, a mutual trust. Over here, mutual trust, because we are talking to unknown audience. Like, I think I was speaking to one of the sir who was in Mumbai. I don't remember his name, but he told me that he was in Mumbai for quite some years. And then I told him that he gave his example, like he has शून्य से सर्जन हुए हैं. So he has come up with lots of hardship, and today he is on the top position in his field of work. So I told him that, yeah, you can give your example when it comes to sharing success stories. What most of the time what we do is we share success story of someone else. Not everyone knows, but when I start sharing my story, I build a mutual trust, because even you might not accept it or you might not readily agree with it, but deep within yourself you will know that yes, even you face this problem. Like when I started with this Zoom training, I wasn't even aware that you had this basic and advanced, wherein you can present with the PPT running in the back on a Zoom platform. It's available only on the advanced setting, paid version rather. So it was new to me. I did do a couple of trial and error with my family members, and yes, I'm learning it. So, and even sometimes you find technical issues. So when I relate my story with you, what problems I faced, you will recollect, yes, we also face this. So there's a kind of trust, not only for this particular session, for any session, we have our own stories to relate or narrate, so that we build this trust between the participant and the presenter. We need to have exemplary communication skills. Over here, not only communication, it should be verbal, non-verbal communication, hand gestures also count a lot. So we need to train ourselves. We need to master this art, because when we are in a physical live training session, we can communicate, people are seeing us and they are able to gauge us. But when we are on a Zoom platform, it becomes difficult for them to see what we are presenting. Only the hand gestures, that also is minimized. So our way of communication should be such that we should give in between, we need to give a pause, communicate with them, smile, keep a smiling face. It's not that you need to have lots of tension on your face. Communication, the smile also is a way of communicating with people. And yes, speaking skills, verbal and non-verbal, as I already mentioned, speaking skills, we need to be very careful when we are speaking about what to speak, how to speak, when to speak. Apart from that, sometimes we go too fast and the participants are not able to understand what we are telling them. And then we see in the chat box, you're going too fast, you're going too slow. So we need to take care of these type of skills also when we are going on a Zoom platform or any other virtual platform. And yes, demonstrate that we value this experience. Yes, if I come over here without any prior preparation, it's just for the sake of doing. So if I have to demonstrate that I value this training as much as you, because you're giving your valuable time, I need to value your time, and I need to value whatever knowledge I'm sharing with you, that is going to bring an input to me also, because it's a two-way process, not just for you, but because I am also learning something in return. So we need to demonstrate that yes, we value not only your time, our time, and whatever knowledge we are sharing, It's going to be a two-way process. So I think I have covered up almost everything. In-person training, live virtual training, similarities and differences, the advantages and the challenges that we face when we are on a Zoom platform. Preparing to train virtually, effective live virtual training practices, and developing a credible digital persona. So if there is any questions, I am open to it, sir. If there are any questions, you can please let me know, sir, because I am not able to see the chat box.
Madam?
Yes, sir. Can I stop sharing the screen, sir, with your permission?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can start sharing the screen.
Madam, good evening. Line Pramod Kumar once again.
Good evening, sir.
Ma'am, can you tell me if because of this PPT advanced setting,
Right, sir.
the host and the co-host has got the privilege of muting and unmuting a participant.
Right, sir.
Now, the same way, is there some stopping and unstopping for the chatting even?
Yes, you can stop chats because
Yeah, because the naked eye gets blinked away.
Yes, we have that option also.
Okay.
Because many a times when the presenter is giving a presentation, we have n number of hellos, good evenings. So we can stop this in the chat. We have this option in this one. The host can do it. So
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Jyoti, this is Jagan Mohan Reddy. I have one question.
yes,
And
sir.
your presentation is very nice. And if you add on something, the etiquette mannerism of the participants also is included in that. And more particularly, the participants should answer or they should chat connected to the subject, not relevant to the subject.
Yes.
And people calling up, somebody comes up and joins, welcome you, good, that we are nice to see you. And this kind of thing is a distraction when the other people who are concentrating on the subject also it's a distraction, so that you can add up in the future your virtual training, and this participants also has to be very disciplined so that it will not be distract the those who are very serious about it. Thank
Very
you.
true. Thank you so much, sir. I am sharing one more link on the chat box. What is the takeaway from today's session? You can answer n number of times. It's okay, but it's going to be as I said, two-way process. I too will be learning something from this takeaway session, so you can be open to your. You can please put it in the. I've shared the link. You can put in your answers in the link that I've shared, sir.
The virtual meetings will be the future in coming days to face the pandemics like this.
Yes, because it not only saves cost,
Yes.
it saves time also, both for the presenter and as well as the participant. So it's going to be the future norm for everyone. So.
No, it's a challenge for the faculty also. When they are in person talking, they can manage anything and do the grooming. But in virtual, it is very difficult that we have to go with the actual contents.
Right, sir. Let me see what are the answers that have come up. Wow, got lots of knowledge, good knowledge on virtual, do's and don'ts. More input, it's interesting, super, confidence, excellent knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you once again for inviting me, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
you, madam. Thank you very much. The importance of virtual training is very important nowadays. As said, our the participants and everybody should know about the etiquettes of the virtual training. And about this session, we'll have one more program on first onwards, madam. We are going to start next program, train the trainers. In that, this etiquettes also there, and all the virtual training tips also will be given by the trainers to the trainees, and we can have that later. Now, thank you very much, madam. Now, I request next faculty for the next session, decision making. Our past district governor, line Pankaj Mehta, LCIP graduate from 3231 A3 district. You are most welcome, sir. Pankaj, sir.
Thank you, Reddy Saab. A very good evening to every one of you.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much for inviting me, GLT coordinator. And it is my pleasure to, participate and interact with so many participants, wonderful participants from your district. Compliments and congratulations for a very novel idea. Taking LLC to the people. I'm seeing it for the first time. And I think it's a very good attempt. And I think the response also has been very good. I've been seeing it for a couple of days, and the participation is very good. So to begin with, a very good evening to participants. Can you see my presentation? On the right hand side, you see the screen, Pankaj Mehta decision making. Reddy Saab, can you see that?
No,
can you see that, right? Okay. Now this presentation, as you see, is of a different kind. This is not a PPT. On half screen on the right hand side, you will see the presentation, and on left half, you'll be seeing me. So you see almost 50% of the trainer, and 50% is the presentation. Okay, coming straight, jumping, because I think only 30 minutes is given to me. So let's jump straight to the topic. Decision making. So what is decision making? Decision making is the process of making a decision with the goal of selecting an alternative or determining a course of action from among several options. Whenever you have to decide upon a goal or a task or something that you need to do, whatever is your need, there may be so many options available, so many alternatives available, and to get on to the one most important option or an alternative to work on, that is what the decision is to make. And in this session, we are going to speak about this in detail. In fact, online, they have shown 3 models, which I'll be discussing with you. But before jumping into that, I have something to tell you. Wherever you are in your life, happy, unhappy, rich, mediocre, wealthy, poor, successful, unsuccessful, at the end of the day, our life is the sum total of our decisions, our choices that we have made all throughout the journey, wherever we are today. So how important decision making is, you can look within yourself, wherever you stand, how happy you are with your life today will tell you. And with most of us, it happens that probably we did not pay much attention how important decision making is. And if I can reel back my life and go back in my life, then probably I can change so many of my choices, so many of my decisions. But then this art was not taught to me. I was not aware of it. Nevertheless, it is never too late. We can wake up today and start concentrating in making decisions, making the right choices. The fact remains that most of the decisions we take are taken unconsciously out of the compulsive habits. The day-to-day things that keep happening with us. Our habits are so profoundly strong that we don't even think about it, and we keep on making the decision. And most of the time, the decisions are made unconsciously out of compulsive habits. It is an art, or your willingness to make a difficult decision, and not only making a decision, but as a leader, looking into it that all the people around who are connected with this goal or a task, you drive them towards a decision, so that ultimately what you want in life, what you want in the project, what you want a task to be completed, you can do it. It's a difficult decision, but at the end of the day, if you're a leader, this is what is expected out of you. So let's jump into, or give you an example before that how at times a decision helps people. There was this gentleman called Aron Ralston. He was a mountain climber. He was crazy about climbing rocks and climbing mountains. And he was in one of his expedition, he was climbing mountains in Utah. There are a lot of canyons and mountains are over there in Utah. And while between the canyon, when he was going up, he got caught between the two canyons and the rock fell on his right arm. His hand was almost crushed. For almost 4 to 5 days, he was there not knowing what decision to take. Nobody could come to help him. Nobody knew what is happening to him. And then one fine day, on the 5th day, I think, he took a difficult decision that if I have to survive, otherwise I'll die here out of hunger and thirst. If I have to survive, I must chop off my right hand on which the rock has fallen. He cuts with his own he cuts his right hand and relieves himself. And he lost his one limb, but he's alive today. And is today one of the sought after motivational speaker. What he did? He had a willingness to take a difficult decision for himself. He chopped off his own right arm in order to survive. Well, I'm not talking about death and life over here. In Lioness, we don't do that. But at least we should know what decision making is, how important it is, and what are the different modules of decision making. So to begin with, the first module I call it is decision making process. Obviously, the first module will be how to make a decision. When we say to do this or do that, it is definitely a process. And if it is a process, obviously it has to have number of steps. So here is step number 1, or I will say the 6-step process. Step number 1 is identify your need. What is your need? The need for Alton was to survive. That was his need. He understood his need, and that's how he chopped off his right arm. Second step would be gather information about that need, what all is available, what kind of information you can gather. The third step would be, in that information, list all the alternatives. The fourth will be explore all the options available once you have made the list of all the alternatives. The fifth step would be select an option that best suits you to make a decision and complete your task. And finally, evaluate and then implement. Simple. Identify need, gather information, list alternative, explore option, select an option, evaluate, implement. Let us go in little detail of each step. For convenience, I'll be taking up a common example for all the 6 steps, and that is a club is organizing a free vision screening, and they are looking on what date to conduct this free vision screening. I'll relate this example to all the 6 steps so the matter becomes very, very clear. The first step is identify the need for a decision to be made. Confirm that a decision needs to be made and define the nature of this decision. At times, we don't even know what decision I need to make. We have not been able to identify the need itself. So first step is identify the need and confirm that, yes, this is required, and then move forward. If we talk about this example which I was talking about, for example, if your club wants to conduct a vision screening outreach that is decided on a location, but not a date, a decision must be made on which date event will be held before the event is planned. So what is the need? The need is on which date the event will be held. So now you have identified the need about this particular project. Moving further, second stage, rather gather relevant information. What do I mean by that? Gather the information you need in order to make a good decision. Collect as much information as possible. Consider all the possible sources, including information you already have. You can collect it from the external resource, from other Lions Club, from internet, Google it, from various publications. See that related to this, whatever you're trying to take a decision on, gather all the relevant information. For example, for this particular project, what information the club had? For choosing a date for vision screening, use past experiences as a guideline. Or poll club members regarding the possible dates. There may be so many dates available. Get a polling from the club members done, which will be the best date. Also consider consulting your community events calendar for possible conflict and opportunity. Where you're going to have this event. Are there any dates conflicting? Are they having any other program on the same date? Nothing should clash with your program. So this is gathering relevant information. The third stage is list realistic alternatives. The word important over here is realistic alternatives. Establish knowledge or collect and weight the information. Whatever information you have, try to weight which is possible, which is not possible, what is great, in which area the project will be very successful. Look at the feasibility and stay open-minded as you consider a variety of specific and reasonable alternatives. For example, in our example, regarding a date for vision screening, list all the dates possible within the defined range. Eliminate dates on the days of the week that you are not worked out well in the past. In past, on a particular day, every Thursday, probably you're having it earlier, it was not doing well. Well, remove that date with your past experience. See that there are no conflicts with any community event, and then make a list, absolutely all the possible alternatives. The fourth option would be explore and consider the options. Once you have made the alternative, define the criteria by which you will assess the option. Now, you may have 10 options for any given task. On what criteria you are going to define this alternative or put an option which is most important, second important, third important. So decide the criteria on what basis you are going to decide the options that you want to decide upon. Consider what the outcome might be if you followed each alternative, a path to your goal. Place the alternative in order of preferences. Consider each option that if I take this, what will be the outcome? If I take this, what will be the outcome? Depending upon what are the best, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, start putting your preferences. For example, in this particular example, in vision screening, date needs to be an weekend afternoon. So what was the criteria? Criteria was weekend afternoon. Criteria is fixed. Now with that, whatever date options they got, start evaluating each date, which will be the best date. Is it clashing with some other events? Whether it is not clashing, whether volunteers are free or not that day, what kind of outcome will be there? And once that is done, put the preferences 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however it comes out. Number 5 would be select the most promising option. That is number 1. Which is number 1 or number 2? That is the most promising thing. Then and correlate with the fourth. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've given the preference. Number 1 seems to be the best. And then you can decide upon your vision screening, assess priorities for a date, time and date, and what it is available. In addition to avoiding community conflicts, and select the date and meet the most important criteria. What is the criteria? Weekend. Afternoon is the criteria. So when you get all the options, select the best one and then evaluate and implement. What do I evaluate? If I do it on this date in the afternoon, what would be the outcome? Are there any challenges over here? Is this the best option? If I do this, will I get better number of screening possible? And once you have vetted that, decide upon it and implement that. This is what is the final 6th step. So it's a 6-step process. I hope I'm very clear on this. Summary: identify the need, gather information, list alternatives, explore options, select an option, and evaluate and implement. Now, if the definition of each step is clear in your mind, I would like to take a quiz for you that how much you have understood. You can go through this slide once again. Identify the need, confirm need to make decision, gather information, find information from all the sources, list alternative, establish feasible option, explore option, assess and compare the option, select an option, choose one of the alternative, evaluate and implement, review the decision and implement it. So now the quiz to you is, here is the 6-step process. What you see in blue or violet are the 6 steps. Against each, I have given the definition, which are not the right definition. In the bracket, you see in red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On left hand, you have in violet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 needs you are supposed to match with the right column. So if one, for example, identify needs matches with red 2 or red 3 or red 4, on your pad, put 1, and then against that, which number matches of red, put that number. Against 2, which red number matches, you put in your pad. Once you are done with this, I will share the poll and you will be putting your answer in the poll. Start reading, take a pad and start putting number against each 6 steps. Step number 1 matches with which one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Step number 2 matches with which one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Start putting on a notepad. I give you 2-3 minutes to go through it. And on your pad, be ready. In 2 minutes, I will share the poll with you. Please keep doing it. I'm giving you 2-3 minutes.
Shall I make you host, sir?
No, I'm a host. Don't worry. I'm a co-host. I can do it.
Okay.
I will share it. Are you ready? Put in the chat box when you're ready. I will share the poll with you, friends. The chart is not clear, sir. It's so clear. On right, you have the 6 definition. On left, in the black, you have the definition of that, which are not right. You have to put it on the right order. Go ahead. Let me start because I don't have much time. I wish I had more time. We would have spent a lot of time on these examples. But let me share the poll with you. The first poll I'm sharing with you, I'm launching the poll. And here it goes. Choose any one action to match against each. Identify need. That red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are written. It matches with what? Which one? Start answering the poll. Come on, sir. Are you understanding or no? Can you see the poll on the screen?
Yes, sir. It is seen.
Start replying. 1 is 5. Somebody has wrote 1 is Dr. Anil Babu. Put it in the chat box. Put against 5. You put that. Take that. Start putting, friends. Not in the chat box on the poll question that I've shared with you. Yes, so somebody started. Okay, number 2 here. Somebody's put number 2. Come on, start putting it on the poll. Not on the chat, sir. Are you understanding? I'm speaking English. Put it on the chat box. Put it on the poll. Yes, somebody has again replied. Come on, start doing it. Friends, you have to get accustomed to this new technology. How I'm going to interact with you otherwise? There are 5 questions over here. I think I'm losing time. I'm ending the poll. People are not understanding. I'm ending the poll over here. I go straight to the reply. So if you see the 6 steps on the right-hand side of the answers, which are all wrong answers, the right answers would be what? What would be the right answer? What would be the right answer? The right answer is here. These are the right answer. Identify need matches with number 3. Gather information matches with number 5. Number 3 matches with 4. Number 4 matches with 1. Number 5 matches with 6. And number 6 matches with 2. Are you with me, friends? Can you at least put in chat box? You are with me. You understand what I'm doing? You understand what I'm doing, friends? Put in the chat box. I'm reading. Okay, yes, put whatever you understand that. Yes, okay, Manjula ji. Thanks so much. Okay. Thank you so much. So this was the quiz. When you do online yourself, you will get this to know how it is happening. And this gives the clarity that you have understood the 6 steps process. Thank you so much. Let's move to the second module. The second module, which we call it, is that you have understood the process. You have structured the process, but now how are you going to manage it? How are you going to really manage this process that you have come to 6 steps? And that is done what is known as decision-making style. There are different styles for different kind of a situation. And what we are going to study is 4 styles of decision-making. You have got the need, you have done the information, you have listed the alternatives, you have chosen the best option, and then you implemented it. Now, this is the process in structured form. You have got it with you. But what style of decision-making you're going to use, that depends on various situations. There are 4 types of decision-making styles. Number 1, directive. Number 2 is called analytical. Number 3 is called conceptual. And number 4 is called behavioral. So all four are different, and what they are, let me quickly tell you what it is, how you use it, what are the advantages and disadvantages. Directive style is what? Directive style is sort out the pros and cons of a situation based on what they already know. You already know that the alternatives various. Now weigh the pros and cons. Are rational and has low tolerance for ambiguity. Means there's no ambiguity. It is a quick thing. They start doing it, making a list of it. Base their decision on their own knowledge, experience, and rational. For example, in the case of the project that we are discussing, there they are depending on the past experiences. They've already been permanently doing this project and they know how it is happening. Only they need to decide upon the date. Rest of the things they already know because it is a kind of an ongoing project for them. It is used, this style is used when the situation is stable. Number two, the issue is a set pattern. There's a kind of a pattern is always following. And third is the event is consistent. Like so many regular projects that you do at a club level are stable, are of a particular pattern which is always repeated and it is consistent. And in such situation, you use this directive style. The advantage is it is quick, clear ownership. You know who's doing it. The chairman is doing it or president is doing it, and has little communication. You don't need much communication over here because things are already set. Disadvantages can lead to an impulsive decision. We not consider all the relevant information at times. In fact, when I made a statement in the beginning that most of the time we take a decision unconsciously, we are into this style. We have formed an habit of certain kind, and from this habit, most of the decisions are impulsive decisions. And this is what happens in life. So it is not a bad style, but it depends on a situation which has to be a stable kind of a thing. It has to be, which is repetitive, has a particular pattern, and you've been doing it day in and day out. So this is directive style. Number two is analytical style. As the name suggests, you collect a lot of data, lot of statistics, lot of graphs, collect everything, and then you are accumulating the alternatives and everything, trying to weigh the pros and cons, and trying to come to a final decision, what you need to take an action on. Over here, it is used when there may be more than one right answer. There may be an obvious cause and effect result. Facts can be used to explore viable options. Now I can give a classic example over here. Community need assessment. In CQI, what we do is by and large analytical style. You have to adopt it because before you decide upon what projects your club will do, there may be 100 things coming to you from the community. And now you have to collect a lot of facts and figures before which you can really take a call that out of this 15 project, I will do this 5 project. This is what a decision you need to make. The criteria is the best resources that a club has got, best output that you can give to the community, and what best community wants from you. It will need an analytical style of decision making. The steps remains the same. Advantage, a well-grounded approach to decision making. Disadvantage, over-analyzing can cause complication at times if you are not a trained person in goal setting or something, and it may become a little complicated and it is time consuming. Well, when we're deciding so much for the community, we have to spend time. We have to spend time. So this is the second style. The third style is behavioral style. As the name suggests, when it is used, make sure everyone works well together, meaning you're working in a group, you're working in a team, where whole team as a leader you have to take together, where this style is very important. Give the group the option available to them. You are a leader, but you're making it a democratic kind of a process where your team member can participate. Facilitate a discussion on the pros and cons of each choice, all the team members, how they look at it. When it is used, there is time to be proactive. There is a medium of communicating, and when similar past decision can be considered. So most of the time when you're considering a particular important permanent project, you want to set up an iBank. It will be a mix of analytical and behavioral style because there's a group of people working on it where you have to take care of all these factors. Advantages are: consider different outlook, values opinion as a part of the process. The team gets stronger. The team, I mean, all those kind of things happens with what we learn in team building because of behavioral style of decision making. Disadvantage requires a very decisive leader. The team leader must be very smart. At a stage will come when he has to take a call and decisive action has to be taken, that ultimately we are freezing on this. And it is a communication that is going to help him to drive his decision in behavioral style where he will get what he wants. And the people will feel that he is doing what they want. The combination of his vision getting translated to the vision of the team members and they come together. That is what is the art of this behavioral style of decision making. And in most of the companies, most of outside, they use this kind of technique so that everybody feels that this is my project. I have contributed. I have done something over here. And that becomes the role of the leader who knows how to take a decisive step and decision. And he drives this entire decision-making process. And the fourth one is, it's so interesting, friends. This is such an interesting subject it is. Conceptual. As the name suggests, conceptual decision makers, what they do are concerned with the long-term results, brainstorming alternatives and use creative approach to solve problems, are willing to take risk and employ a social, collaborative and creative approach. The classic example of this I can give you is our global cause. The 5 global cause that we are doing today worldwide, before it was introduced, it has gone into this process at Lions Club International Office. If you talk about LCI Forward, it was under this behavioral decision, this conceptual style decision, which must have gone with the people who are working over there. They must have brainstormed it like anything, looked into so many things globally, how and what can be implemented, because there can be a risk. It has a long-term effect. Most of the big companies, when they set up a factory or a unit or expansion, it is a conceptual decision-making style, which they normally use it. Where it is used, facts can be used to explore viable option. There are many competing ideas. The situation may be unpredictable and creative approach may provide an answer. Advantage, achievement oriented and considers the future as a long-term goal. We have worked on it for such a long time. And today, because of that, every single year, we are serving 200 million people. Somebody for us worked on this conceptual behavior decision. They gave it to us, and now we are working on it. Long-term gain. Disadvantage, not meant to yield a quick solution, obviously. Obviously, it is not something like a impulsive decision, like setting up a date for a vision screening. It is not that. It is something very far-fetched. So these were the 4 types of this. Now a small, quick poll, and now reply to this, friends, please. I want you to reply to this, or I'll not move forward. You'll be staying here till 10 o'clock. I don't care. You'll not move forward. Decision making. Which decision? There are 4 things we have learned. I'm giving definition of all 4. You have to choose which is the right one. The first one is written over there. Which decision making style is characterized by regard for long-term results, brainstorming, creativity, and a willingness to take risk? Out of this 4, which one? The definition fits to which style? Come on, reply on the poll. I'm launching the poll. I'm launching the poll. Just a minute. I'm launching the poll. I'm sorry. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Come on, start replying. Everyone, there are 75 people. Please, not in the chat box. I'll block the chat box. You put it on the poll. Answer that poll. Choose one option. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sir, your guys are not getting it. I don't know. Like, for example, what answer is 1? Conceptual. You're right. Absolutely right. It's absolutely right. The first is conceptual. Number 2, which decision making stands characterized by use of experience, rationality, and sorting pros and cons based on the leader's established knowledge. Which one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one? Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. No, it is not behavior. Sorry. Sorry, no. Come on, start replying. I will find the answer. Now you're replying right. 6 people have replied. Come on, everybody reply on this. What do you call? On the poll. Yes. Everybody. 7 people have replied. Come on, start replying. Everybody. Not on the chat, on the poll, friends. Come on, start practicing. Get used to this technology. Come on. Only 10 people have replied out of 74. Come on, start replying. Okay, I stop over here. The right answer is directive. It is a directive style. The knowledge is based in a standard, stable kind of a thing where you have to take a decision. Number 3. Let's go to next one. Number 3. A lot of people have replied here also. 17 people have replied. Which decision making? Number 3 is what? Number 3 is behavioral style. The behavioral style. 44% people have replied that. You're absolutely right. And the last one is obviously left is analytical. So this was the quiz for you. Go back to your online program and you will get the clarity of what I have spoken and examples that I've given. I'm ending this poll and let's move forward. The third module. The third module is group decision. How a group decision is made. When you're working with a group, a lot of people, a lot of things are happening. 3 methods are there which you can adopt. You have set the 6 steps, then you have used your style, and in that style, there may be so many things coming up when you're dealing with the people. How you will come to the right decision? That is known as group decision. And in this, there are 3 methods. Number 1 is voting. Number 2 is what you call it is ranking, and number 3, what we call it is convergence. What do I mean by this? Let us quickly go. What is voting? Voting can be done orally, visually, or in writing, and can be public or anonymous. It can be done in real time at a meeting or over a period of time via email. What are you doing on an e-voting platform for your district conference? What are you doing? You have to choose. You have 2 choices. Everybody being a directive choice kind of a thing. They have gathered information earlier. It is a repetitive thing. They know their candidate too well. Somebody has done good work, somebody has done what. And when e-voting comes, it is by balloting. You choose one. It is an online voting, can be by email voting. Or some say, for example, you have to decide a date. Now, there may be 3-4 dates coming in preferences. Come on, raise your hand or put in a vote box. That is a voting style, they call it. Number 2 is ranking. Ranking is what? Ranking provides voter with a number of choices they can put in order by preference. I mean, suppose there is some need is there on which in the final stage you have got about 6 options, 6 alternatives, and there's a group of 10 people. Now, what you will do is you're not going into voting, you're going to ranking. You will say, come on, there's 6 things, let us rank it. Now, everybody will rank the way they feel is important, and the maximum number of rank that gets the common thing, probably you can go in for that option. Or again, there, if it zeroes down to 2 or 3 alternatives, you can go for voting for this 2 or 3. So it may be a combination of voting and ranking to come to a final decision. Use ranking when there are several good options from which to choose. Ranking allows you to see the group members' opinion regarding how they think the options compare to one another. If there are 3 optional dates for an event, for example, each group member will rank those dates in order of preference. And whichever date has got a maximum number of preferences, you're going to decide on that particular date in our Vision Care project. The third is convergence. Now, the word itself suggests when you have the group geographically widespread, there are too many people all across, and now you have to decide. Convergence works especially well in geographical dispersed groups because responses are gathered and summarized, and then number of choices is narrowed down for another round of voting. This process guides the group by eliminating options and leading the voting members towards consensus. When they're far off, you're communicating, there are a lot of choices available, and nobody should feel that I'm not a part of the decision making. So what you do, you collect through the convergence process all the choices and options, and after that you narrow down it, and then you may go in for voting and get the consensus for everybody that this is what we are going to do. Use convergence when you have time to collect suggestions and modify ideas. Already set ideas are there, even that can be altered if required through convergence. This method provides a way to decrease the number of choices for each round of voting while also modify and refining them based on input from group members. So here again, it's a matter of group, member of team, people are widespread. There are a lot of options available. You use this method. So you have 3 methods over here. Quickly a poll. It is simple poll of true and false. There is no complication over here. Just answer whether that statement is true or it is false. Let me close this. I will open up another poll. Poll number 3, and that is first one is true or false. Second one is true or false. Third one is true or false. Come on, let us take first one. You can put it on the poll boy. You can put it on a what do you call on the polling. Let me launch this. Here it is. Come on, start replying on this. First one is false, false, false. You are writing. Friends, first one is true. Following statement, true or false. Choose anyone. You should use voting as a group decision-making method when you need a quick decision that considers equal input from all the group members. It is a quick decision. It's simple voting it is. 10 people have said this date, this date. Okay, put it for voting and decide upon it. It's true. Number 2 is obviously it is true. Number 2 is also true. Use ranking when there are several good options from which to choose. And the third one is also true. Use convergence when you have time to collect suggestions and modify ideas. Think about it, friends. 3 beautiful models have been given to you, and it's a thoroughness. My submission to you is when you go back to this online to redo it and get your credit for completing it, please keep this thing in mind, what we have talked about, what we spoke about, the examples that we discussed, and I'm sure it will sink into your heart and soul, and you will be too good in making a decision. In summary, module 1, 6 steps: identify needs, gather information, list alternative, explore options, select an option, and evaluate and implement. Your structure is ready. Now, what style you're going to use? Any of these 3 styles: directive, analytical, conceptual, or behavioral. Once this 2 is done, there may be a lot of choices and alternatives. You might be collecting it and you want to come to a right decision. So the third module would be what method you're going to use. The method will be 3 methods are possible which you can use, and that is voting, ranking, and convergence. There's 3 methods you can use. So module 1 talks about the process. Module 2 talks about the style of decision making, and module 3 talks about the method of using it, how you're going to go about it. These 3 things together, you cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong in whatever decision you make. I would just say thank you so much, Reddy sir, for giving this opportunity for the short time that I could interact with your people. Thank you so much for all your participation. God bless. And I'm sure you all will complete the 37 courses and you're going to get a beautiful, I think the international awards, the certificate, and recognize the completion of LLC courses. Wish you all the best in all your Lanistic endeavor. And Reddy sir, to you also wish you all the best. Just before I leave, Jyoti said that Lionism is meant for networking also. So let me do a little 1-minute networking of my program. I run what is called as 7 p.m. Success Club. 7 p.m. Success Club. In this, every month I conduct 2 webinars. In 6 months is the membership for this club, where I conduct 12 life-changing webinars. My WhatsApp number is over here. You can click the picture. If you're interested, get in touch with me. I'll be sending this detail even to Reddy sir. And if he wishes, he can circulate it to your members. And if you can jump into the Success Club, it is something which you will enjoy. You'll enjoy, and Jyoti is a part of it. Jyoti is a part of this program at the moment. I would invite you, take your call. I'll send the details to Reddy sir. Once again, Reddy sir, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you once again, and over back to you, sir. Any questions?
Thank you so much, sir.
Any questions can be, and you can just put any questions, friends. Any questions?
Just I'm unmuting. Yeah. So participants, you can ask this.
One at a time, otherwise I'll not hear anything. Yeah, come on.
Today we got a very
Any
good
questions,
experience
sir?
seeing the side by side screen we have seen today. We do not know till now how to see that side screen.
Yes, sir.
I can't hear anything, sir. I can't hear anything.
Pankaj sir, this is
Yeah.
Surya here.
Yes,
Can you hear
Surya.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can.
See, with my experience, I'm seeing the new creativity of the speaker come this thing. So I'm very much interested to learn from you how to develop this one because I want to be the future trainer. So really, I'm impressed.
You can talk to me in person. I think we will speak to decision making today. You call me up,
Okay.
I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything. You
Yeah,
just
yeah,
call
yeah.
me. You can make a call to me. You can. I'll talk to you.
The same number?
Same number, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
I don't change numbers. I don't change friends. I don't change my wife. They are permanent.
Even I am also the same since last 3 decades, sir.
You can click the picture of this, friends. I want
Yeah,
more.
done it, sir.
Yeah, please click picture of this. Okay.
Thank you so much. Sir.
Please, any questions?
Participants, you can ask questions.
Okay.
Pankaj sir,
Yeah.
line Pramod Kumar, because your smile has become so lighter. I thought, let me pose a question.
Tell me.
Sir, you were talking about the behavioral style.
Right.
A decisive leader. How much time a decision has to be taken?
How much time? How much? I didn't get it. How much time?
How much time a decisive leader?
How much time in this particular style and time required for a person to deal with? You're talking about how much time this
Yeah.
style would take?
Yeah, a person will take.
That entirely depends upon the situation. What is the need that you have selected, and what are the criteria you have attached to this need? These two things are decided with whom you are interacting. Especially, I give a classic example of deciding upon the various committees to be given at district level as a governor. Now, governor would be having so much of pressure on him. Everybody wants GLT, but only Reddy gets GLT. Nobody else gets GLT. Now, how does a governor take a call? If he wants to be absolutely clear-headed, with no biases, no partiality, he will have to get into this behavioral style of decision-making, and he has to be decisive. A time will come, he'll say, no, I want now Reddy Saab only as my GLT. And he will convince the people, why Reddy? So time doesn't matter, it depends on what the situation is. Now, governor will have a time before first week of July. He has to make a decision. He doesn't have more time. Right? I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Because I wanted this question to be answered by you. Because viewing this district environment. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, sir. Pleasure.
Sir, line Jagan Modi, sir, are you there to respond?
Who's there?
Jagan
Any
Modi, sir.
question?
Jagan Modi, sir. PM.
I am very much here, Pankaj Saab. Very
Yes,
nice.
ask
Your
what's the
decision
question?
making is so, though scientifically, you have designed it so scientifically, and it is excellent. And your examples and related to the linism, and then screening of this program for the children. And this is really, really nice. And
Thank you.
the first module, you said the 6 steps is a fantastic, and it is very clarity, very much. Any decision that is wherever it is, any decision that has to be taken has to be followed these until unless we have all the information, and it is very difficult. And then at the end, I could not catch up at the end. The other 4 steps, but the first of these steps I could understand very well, and a little bit I was not understood well the last one, and definitely I will talk to you personally. And
Okay.
many people might have understood, but there was some distraction for me. There was some distraction for me that because of that I could not follow it up.
Okay, so
quickly.
what I
And anyhow,
suggest,
it's very nice, excellent.
thanks so
Yeah.
much. What I suggest, sir, once you go online on decision making, you will recall everything that I've spoken. I can take that as a challenge. Whatever I've spoken, you'll be able to relate it once you're sitting on your laptop and opening up decision making on LLC. One thing only I want to make a point over here is, when we talk about to decide upon the need, and then we get into towards that need, selecting various alternatives. Now, this is related something directly like a goal setting. And for that, most important thing is, how are you making the steps of your task? How are you breaking down into the steps? Because deciding upon the task is one of the most important thing when you're making a decision. People fail in making a right decision is they have not been able to champion how to break up that goal into number of tasks. Means the total detailed task maybe of 20 tasks to do that one goal. And in each task, there'll be choices. In each that choices, there'll be alternatives. And it's a process. It's a process. And if you want to make a right decision for your life, this is absolutely a must that you have to undergo this exercise. Otherwise, impulsive decision, deciding everything unconsciously, and that goes on. Our life goes on like this only. And that is what we are today. All the choices that we have made till now, that is what I am today, or you are today, whoever it is, they are like that. So take care of this, friends. Making the list of the task is the most important thing when you are making a decision.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.
I request Nagaraj sir to respond. Nagaraj sir, are you there, sir? Nagaraju sir.
Nagaraju sir, I cannot see, is there?
Is there? Okay, I will talk in the next session. Now, the next session is the last session, 37th session it is. I request.
Ready, sir, just a
line-
second. Ready, sir. I'll be here for 5-10
Yes,
minutes, then I've got my club meeting. I have to rush to my club meeting.
Okay,
Deepak
okay, sir.
Chaudhary
Thank you,
is
thank you.
making his presence. I'll listen to Vasu for some time and then I'll just move out of the meeting, right, sir? So please excuse me, and once again,
Okay.
namaskar to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I request past district governor line Vasu Valwakar, LCIP graduate from Goa. I request him to take the session and coaching, sir. You are most welcome, sir, to our district. Thank you very much for accepting it.
Good evening, the governor. Good evening, JLD coordinator, and my friend Pankaj Bhai there. And I
Yeah,
think Jagan Mohan Reddy is also on the screen somewhere. So nice to be here with you all, a part of this LLC program. You know something? Am I visible on the screen? Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I go for screen sharing?
Yeah, you can.
All right. So when Krishna Reddy called me about 2 or 3 days back, my initial reaction or initial response was, sorry, I can't take it. He wanted me to take the session on the 28th. That was yesterday. And I said, my prior commitments will not be able to do it. But subsequently, what I'm trying to highlight here is the way your JLD coordinator communicated with me by WhatsApp, by email, by phone calls, and he kept on appealing, pleading, and convincing me in such a way that finally I had to heed to his request and said, okay, if it's on 29th, I will be able to be with you all. And I'm so very happy that I'm here with you people. But what I'm trying to highlight here is the communication. What Jyoti Mehta took session in the first session, when she was talking about communication, the way your JLD coordinator has communicated with me and convinced me to be here present with you people is really commendable. Congratulations to your Krishna Reddy.
Thank you.
The way you have actually managed to get me
Thank
here.
you. Thank
You know, though for those of you, I know there are about 80 people on the screen right now. Out of the 80, at least about 60, 70 people would have read the book or have participated in a session called Situational Leadership. This book basically was written by Ken Blanchard, in which he was speaking about 4 different behavioral patterns, like what Pankaj Bhai just spoke about, 4 different patterns of behavior of a human being as a leader. And the 4 patterns he was referring to was, one was direction, behavior pattern. One is direction, one is supporting, the third one is coaching, and the fourth one is delegating. And based on these 4 patterns of behavior, he came out with 4 different leadership styles. One is directive leadership style. The second one is uh, supportive leadership style. Third one is coaching leadership style. And the fourth one is delegating coaching style. Now, unless you go through that level of coaching, you cannot be involved in delegation. So hence, this coaching becomes so very important and essential. And all of us know that coaching is so very important for individuals' personal growth as well as organizational growth. Now, for that, for instance, Pankaj Bhai, myself, Ravi Manuja, and Rajesh Mehra, we 4 of us have done a lot of trainings, LCI trainings together. And we used to always call ourselves trainers in the initial stages. But from there, we slowly started calling ourselves, we are not trainers anymore. We are facilitators. And from there, we have slowly graduated. We have graduated ourselves by calling ourselves. Now we think we are coaches. Am I right, Pankaj Bhai? More than facilitators.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
We are like coaches. So what is
Mentors and coaching. Mentor and coach.
Mentor and coach. So when we speak about a coach, can you people think of any name when you talk about a coach, all the participants? When you talk about a coach, can you think of any coach's name? I would say when you think about Sachin Tendulkar, you immediately think about Ramakant Atragar, right? Jyoti madam, you would know, being in Mumbai. For that matter, whole world knows Ramakant Atragar more than knowing Sachin Tendulkar, because he was a coach who coached Sachin to be one of the greatest cricketers and god of cricket. Ramakant Atragar himself was not a god of cricket. He wasn't as efficient or as skillful or as talented as Sachin Tendulkar, but he was a coach to Sachin Tendulkar and brought out the best results that the world could see. So in other words, to be a coach, you need not be the most talented person, the most knowledgeable person. You as a coach have to be able to be like a third eye, third camera, or a third empire, so that you can see, observe, and monitor what is happening to your mentee or to the person or the team that you're handling as a coach. So your caliber is seen by how you're able to observe, how you're able to give the feedback to the person or to the team, and that is how your coaching starts. Let's just look at this. What coaching means from our point of view or from LLC's point of view. Coaching means empowerment, which means increasing the opportunities for individuals to make choices and to act on them. Now, when Pankaj Bhai was speaking, he was speaking about choices. Unless you make a choice, you cannot act. And unless you act, you cannot succeed or fail. Either way. So your every position that you of success that you achieve in life depends on the choices that you make. And your coach is supposed to empower you or help you or guide you or mentor you or be with you or coach you to make better choices in life and in organization, so that you can become a better leader, you can become an effective leader. That is what actually everyone means. So in today's session, a very short session of 30 minutes, everybody had this predicament of 30-minute session. And in 30 minutes, we cannot teach anything. We cannot train anybody. We cannot facilitate too much of thinking. But all that we can do, we are not giving up. What we can really do is we can create an awareness in your minds. So that all 80 of you who are on the screens will start thinking, what is this coaching about? What is it that we don't know? What is it that we know? What is it that we want to learn? That awareness, once you create in a mind, that awareness will make you a little bit uncomfortable. And once you become uncomfortable, you want to change. And once you want to change, that is when you start learning. So in these 30 minutes that we are going to speak to you, as it is, we have started 15 minutes late this session. So instead of 8:45, perhaps we'll go into 9 o'clock, I suppose. So for the next 30 minutes, my role, as I understand, is to create an awareness in your minds, what we are going to talk about as coaching. Coaching is the process we use to empower individuals to develop and grow. Those of you who have read books, especially like Jagannath Reddy, who's there present, as J.C. Maxwell says, leadership is about developing more leaders around you. Leadership is about growing more leaders around you. And as a coach, that is your primary responsibility to grow and develop leaders around you. What our organization needs? Our organization is doing wonderfully well as far as service is concerned. Our organization is doing fantastic service which galore all over. But what we need is to develop more and more effective and efficient leaders. And that is the role of a coach. Now, all 80 of you are sitting here. may have done coaching to some persons in the past, or maybe practicing or getting ready to coach somebody. Some of you are RCs, some of you are ZCs, like Kalam Reddy himself is a GLT. So each one of you will have a lot of responsibilities, and you will have lots of opportunities as well to get people whom you are going to coach, either individually or as a team. You'll be a team leader, or you'll be an individual personal coach or a mentor to somebody. So let's understand. I will give you just 5 secrets of coaching. If you have noticed on the screen, what I've done is I've done an acronym which stands as COACH, coach. These are the 5 secrets which we are going to lightly elaborate. We have no time to elaborate all these 5 fully, but I will elaborate them slightly, so that, and little by little, so that awareness will remain in your minds when you go back onto the LLC center. So the first C is conviction driven. A leader or a coach has to be conviction driven. He should be convinced, he should have his own beliefs. He should not compromise, never ever compromise on his beliefs and his conviction. The day you don't stand for something in life, you will stand for anything, or you will fall for anything and everything. So a good coach should be always willing to be convicted, because that conviction or the self-belief or the belief in the concept that he has actually gives a sense of direction. Unless you have conviction, unless you have a belief in what you are doing, you will never have a direction. And without direction, you don't know where you will go and where you will take your people, or where you will take your mentee or your people whom you're leading. So in order to become a good coach, you have to be conviction driven. And this conviction and belief is like a river. In a river, can you imagine a river without the banks and a direction of water flowing? It is only a puddle of water. Only when that puddle of water has a direction, and when it has the banks or bounding of the banks, it becomes a river. So likewise, for every coach to become an effective coach, you have to have conviction, and you should never give up your conviction. Make sure everyone knows the target. As a coach, whatever your task is, just now Pankaj Bhai has spoken to you about the decisions and all those patterns and modules. But once you are convinced, and once you know that this particular task we have to do, and this is our target to achieve something, then you make sure that everyone else in your team or your mentee knows your target very well. Because once you aim at the target, you should be able to aim the bullseye and not the entire target. If you'll remember about Arjuna, when he was asked to shoot into the eye of the fish, he could not see the fish, he could only see the eye. That was the bullseye. So when you hit, or when you shoot at the bullseye, there are chances that you may miss the bullseye, but you will still hit the target. Otherwise, if you just aim the target, and if you miss, you will miss the target. That is how you should be convinced. So you make sure that your team knows the target very well. And you also have to make sure that your people are convinced that success is not permanent and failure is not fatal. Once you fail, it does not mean you are a failure. You can always tell. Failure is a person who, after failing once, does not try again. That's a failure. But a person who, after failing, gets up and tries again is always going to be a successful person. That is exactly what that conviction that a coach has to have in himself, in his beliefs, his capabilities, his potential, as well as the people whom he is leading, people with whom he is dealing. He should have that conviction. So that is why the first C, conviction. Second one, overlearning. What is overlearning? Overlearning is practicing until it's perfect. If you look at cricketers, when they come and hit 6 sixes in an over or 6 fours in an over, we all appreciate, we like it, we go ecstatic, we are overwhelmed. But it is not a one-day attempt by these people, that particular cricketer. He has practiced those shots. It could be a reverse sweep, it could be a reverse scoop, it could be whatever different shots that you see in cricket nowadays. Those have been practiced for months and years and hours in a day by a person, and we only see it when it's actually performed in front of us on the screen. But there's a lot of practice gone into it. Without practice, you cannot become perfect. It's a normal thing that we always hear. Without practice, you cannot become perfect. But I would say a step further, unless you have a perfect practice, you cannot become perfect. Because if you practice imperfection, you will become perfectly imperfect in future. Hence, even in practice, you have to be perfect. And that's why every effective leader helps their team members achieve practice perfection. So perfection is not only for a one day or final day, it is always a regular process. The third point I want to make here, audible ready. What does it mean? Audible ready means you should be willing to listen. First, you're observing. You should also be willing to listen. What is required? Where the need to change will come. So you should be prepared for a change of strategies. Once you plan for something, once you have a goal in mind, only goal is not enough. Having a goal is not enough. Having a goal and follow up of the goal is so very essential. Goal, achieving every detail is very important. We must not only just stare at the staircase, but we should be prepared to step up on the staircase. So after having a goal, which is also important, but it's not as important as the follow-up that you have to do. So you first plan the goal, decide what your goal is, and prepare and plan how you will go about the action. And after your plan is ready, you also have to be prepared for a sudden unexpected thing to happen, which might happen most of the time. So you should be prepared for the unexpected, be expecting the unexpected, and have a strategy or a plan ready, and to listen to people, listen to the situations, look at what is happening around you, and be prepared to change. That is your audible ready. And the fourth point here is consistency. Consistency in how you behave, consistency in what you do in life, but more importantly, consistency in how you respond to the predictability of the performance of your participants or your team members. You cannot be, when you're responding to a performance of your team or an individual, you should be predictable. People should know my coach will respond in such a manner because he has done it in the past. Past performance of someone else has been responded in such a manner. That consistency should be there. Otherwise, what happens is we as leaders, we have our favorites. So certain favorite people will respond differently. Certain people who are not liked so much by us, we respond differently. And with certain people whom we hate perpetually, we respond differently. That should not be a coach's personality. His personality should be known by the people that if we perform in such a manner, this is how he's going to respond. So he's not responding to an individual, he's responding to the performance of an individual. If you look at our ceremonies, most of us will know what is happening. We as a coach or a district governor or as a leader, we are not predictably responding to the performance of our people. We are just distributing awards. So our appreciation, our recognition is no longer consistent. So once if you want to be in this pattern of a good coach, an effective coach, learn to consistently respond to the performance of the people. And finally, the fifth point, we are talking about honesty based. Although we say nowadays this honesty and integrity is not all that common in today's world, whatever we do, because we are leaders, because we are a coach, because we are a role model, because somebody is looking up to us, we should be prepared to not to compromise on our honesty and our integrity. You can win in a task or you can lose in a task. You can be successful in a task, you can be failure in a task, but not at the cost of your integrity. Because everybody says, victory if possible, integrity at no cost. A leader should have a high integrity. What is high integrity? He should walk the talk. If as leaders, if we are professing something, we should be also following it. It is not meant only for our lectures or trainings. If we say something, we should mean what we are saying, and we should put that particular thing in our behavior and in our actions, so that becomes a part of our character. People are looking at us as a coach is always looked upon. Here, I would like to tell you one more interaction, and a very important point that I would like to make. Let's take an example of somebody learning to swim, especially somebody from this group of 80. I don't find any of them very young. They are above mid. They're all in mid age, at least above 40 for sure. So you probably didn't know to swim. Now that you are settled in life and you have probably find a lot of time, so you decided your basic liking was for swimming and you want to learn swimming. So once you decide, you have to go to a coach to learn swimming, right? So once you go to a coach will start training you from day one. And let's analyze how a coach is looking at you, how is overseeing you, how is observing you, how is monitoring your progress. On the first day, maybe he'll teach you how to beat your legs, how to beat your arms. Sometimes you'll find faults in your arm bending or your leg not straightening up, whatever. Those are the intricacies of swimming. So first day to the 8th day, you are slowly improving in your swimming, which you didn't know neither head nor tail of swimming on the day one. But by the 8th day or the 9th day, you're slowly improving. You're moving on a scale from 0 to 100. So you have gone to say 40%, 40 on the scale. 9th day, you're going to 50. Then you may be slowly improving, progressing to 60. You know, as a person who's actually into action, who's doing this swimming, you may be very happy because of your progress. You may be wanting to celebrate because from 0 you have gone to 30, from 30 you have gone to 40, from 40 you have gone to 50, from 50 you have gone to 60. So you are definitely making a progress in your swimming. But still every day your coach still finds some faults, some things that he has to say to you regarding whatever, maybe your action, maybe your breathing, maybe your body posture, whatever. He keeps giving you some tips, some points to ponder, some points to correct. And you are not happy about it because you are so very happy and you want to celebrate that you have gone from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. But what is your coach actually supposed to be doing? Not only what he does, he is supposed to expect nothing less than 100 from you. Because if he settles for 60 or 70, of which you have every right to celebrate because you're gradually making a progress, no doubt about it. You should be celebrating. But coach cannot be celebrating them. Coach has to be looking out for 100, not 60, not 50, not 49. Because if he settles for 60, you will become a mediocre swimmer. You will never become 100%. You'll never become perfect. Coach's job, primary responsibility is to make sure that you do not remain mediocre. You become a perfect individual. So he cannot even settle for 99. You may say that I've gone in 30 days from 0 to 99 and I'm so very happy. And I want to celebrate. Yes, you celebrate what you have achieved as an individual or as a team. But a coach will still demand more and more because he still waits for that 100 figure to come. So you as a coach have to understand that your responsibility is to demand and expect at least 100% from every person that you are coaching. So and this might lead to certain relational problems. You know, you may start thinking my coach is over demanding, my coach doesn't like me, that's why he keeps finding faults in me. He keeps telling me to change certain things. But it's not like that. You have to understand that coach's job primarily is there to find faults so that you become 100%. Is it very clear to everybody? Is it very clear? So I've given you these 5 seconds of coaching. Now we'll just go quickly as per LLC. What is the advantage of coaching for an individual? What is the advantage to the organization and what is the advantage to? I still have another 10 minutes. What is the advantage to the coach? Let's have a look at this. Why do we need coaching? Everybody benefits from coaching. The individual benefits, the organization benefits, as well as the coach also benefits. Now, how? Where? Let's go quickly through this. Individual benefits, increase skills. You are progressing. You make progress in your life. You are learning new skills. You are understanding new talents. So you are, we shall say, you are evolving as a soul. You are increasing your skills. That is your first benefit. It reduces personal obstacles. Something which could have been a personal obstacle. Like Jyoti Mehta has been a participant on various schoolings at various levels at LCI, and today she has come as a faculty. She must have obviously gone through a lot of hurdles, which she has crossed, gone over all those obstacles and hurdles. So that reduces your personal obstacles. Am I right, Jyoti?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. It prepares you for new responsibility. Similarly, how you grow in an organization, in the hierarchy of an organization, depends on how you increase your skills, how you get over your personal obstacles, and how you prepare for the new responsibilities. People grow from president to ZC, ZC to RC, RC to vice governors, vice governors to governors. Some people go to IDs, some people go to presidents. That's all that is fine. That is hierarchical growth. But most of the lions that I meet, even at the lowest level, I mean, at the presidential level, they always say, sir, what I was earlier until I joined Lions and what I've become today, there is a vast difference in terms of my myself being what I am today, in terms of public speaking, in terms of interpersonal relationship, in terms of being a good speaker or a good what do you call, good communicator or a good team man. All these things we are learning, and that gives us new responsibilities. That is another benefit as an individual, and greater confidence and personal satisfaction. Everything that we do with a lot of confidence. Our confidence keeps growing as our skills increase, our position goes up, and as our potentiality also increases or improves, we gain in confidence, and that finally gives us personal satisfaction. Since we as Lions, we have joined Lions not for awards or certificates or pins or medals. We have joined, basically our purpose of joining Lions was satisfaction by serving other people. And we finally come here. This is our final benefit. When you get a good coach for you right from day one of your Lionism till you grow to whatever you want to become, whatever you're capable of becoming, and whatever you deserve to become. That's one. Then if this is a benefit for an individual, what is the benefit for the organization? Now let's look at this. Organization becomes more productive and has more productive and motivated members. We talk about 1.4 million people and members in our organization. How many of them are still productive and how many of them are still motivated is a big topic for our research. So if we try to coach people, if we try to motivate people, then you'll have more and more productive people. That is why LCI, Lions Club International, has moved its focus from service to leadership, so that at the end of every year, we will have more and more motivated people who will become eventually more productive. So the association benefits from this because we get more productive people. Increased service. Once people become motivated and productive, your service increases. As we have seen even now in this pandemic situation, although there are lots of hurdles and obstacles that we have, our service has really improved and increased. So improved in terms of quality and increased in terms.
I think there must be some connectivity issues with sir, I think.
Yes, madam, you may come now.
Right, sir.
Sir. Now you are co-host, sir. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, audible, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear.
There was some connectivity problem, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, you may not get my screen now, but I will continue with this.
No problem, sir.
Now, finally, what are the benefits of a coach? The benefits of a coach are improved relationship. As I told you, when you think that your coach is all the time finding faults,
Krishnana, you can speak now. ఎందుకంటే సార్ ది నెట్ ప్రాబ్లం ఉన్నట్టుంది.
Okay, he's coming back. Yeah, he came back.
hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you all hear me? There's some connectivity problem. I'm doing my presentation now from the iPhone.
Okay, no problem.
I had to do away with the laptop, some connectivity issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have two more points to cover. Coach benefits to the coach. There is improved relationship between the coach and the team. There's better understanding of others. That is for the coach. He understands people better because he's coming across different types of people. So his understanding of the people becomes better and improved. More effective use of resources. A coach benefits from he finds various resources and he knows how to use the resources for the betterment of the improvement and progress of his people. Greater opportunity to delegate responsibilities. As I started this session with those 4 styles of leadership, one is directive style, one is supportive style, then comes the coaching style, and final is the delegating style. So once you have become a good coach, your benefit is you know whom to delegate the work. Because by now you have gone through all the stages of that person and you have understood him, you have studied him, you have judged him. And a judge cannot be an advocate, and an advocate cannot be a judge. So you as a coach is a judge and you have judged him now. So you can delegate better to people, any type of task, any activity, any service. And that is why you benefit by better delegation. Finally, we'll come to the last point. In that case, what are the competencies of a coach? What he should be doing, what he should learn to do. He should build a rapport with people. He should have a good rapport with people. Any person who wants to become a successful team man without a good rapport, a good relationship with people, he cannot become successful. He cannot become a coach. So a coach the first competency that coach should have is a rapport. He has to build, and he has to build a rapport. It just doesn't come just like that. He has to observe and analyze. When Pankaj Bhai was taking a session, he was talking about analytical mind all the time. As a coach, you have to observe and analyze. You may not be as skillful as your protege or your mentee, but you should be able to see a small things, minute details of what the person is doing and where he is going wrong. And you should be able to give that feedback to the individual or the team often. And for that, you have to have a mind which is observant mind and analytical mind. Third point is you should be able to question and listen. In simple terms, we call it feedback. Either you give feedback or you get feedback. You question and listen to the answers that you are supposed to get. Provide feedback to the people. And finally, facilitate performance. With this, I know we have already gone into too much into the time. I think I should say thank you to you people in this. We won't do this. We will go finally. We have defined what is coaching. We have recognized the benefits of coaching and we are implementing the coaching competencies. With this, I should thank you, Mr. Reddy, Lion Reddy, and the governor. Thank you so much. And we had little technical issues, but nevertheless, I think 30 minutes point, what we were supposed to make, we have managed to create an awareness. We can always have 2 hours of session on coaching, or for that matter, any topic in Lionism. Minimum of 1.5 hours is required, but awareness is great. And your idea, what you told me that day, your idea is to create an awareness amongst people. Thank you so much for this wonderful initiative and for making me a part of it. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was very excellent. And we are all thankful to all the faculties of 36 topics, sir. Now, all the participants, you are requested to give them a big round of applause to all the faculties. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful. And because of even you are busy also, you have accepted our request. Thank you so much, Vasu Walwakar, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I request our multiple district Leo chairperson, Line Govindaraj sir, to respond for today's programs.
Not unmuted. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Krishna Reddy. First, I must compliment Krishna Reddy for taking an initiative and making all our friends come together. You are giving us an opportunity to meet first, because in this pandemic for the past 1 year, 3 months or 4 months, we are only meeting through Zoom. Of course, Pankaj, Vasu, we are all colleagues in the various institutes. You made us proud, and again, thank you very much. And on your behalf, on behalf of 320C, I must thank many faculty members who have accepted our invitation and they have spared their valuable time and shared their knowledge, interacted with our line members of our multiple 320. And I am sure our lines have benefited from this, from out of these many sessions for the past 15 days. And you are the last speaker, Vasu, and you did a wonderful job as usual. It's
Govindraji, sorry, I didn't know you were on the screen.
okay, but
I would have definitely mentioned you.
I missed a major part of your presentation because I was in a Leo meeting. I'm in charge of Leos in the multiple, Vasu.
Yeah.
So I was conducting monthly, every month on Saturday, we'll have this Leo meeting. It's Leo's time. 2 hours time is given to them to share their views, to explore, showcase their talents and all that. I was there. Just now I finished, completed that program. And I cannot miss, when Vasu is there, I cannot miss him.
Thank you, thank you.
We enjoyed a lot when we are participating in various institutes. Once again, thank you very much, Vasu. Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Jyoti. And again, as I mentioned, Anand Kumar is here, Srilekha is here, Leo also, I've seen Leo Stanley, all our good friends. Again, I must compliment Krishna Reddy for inviting all these people, all these senior line leaders, right? All the very best. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our Jagannath Reddy sir to respond. Jagannath Reddy sir.
Yeah, very well. Vasu, good evening.
Good evening, good
My
evening.
good friend Vasu, I'm very happy. And there is another parallel meeting was going on. I don't want to miss today you. And that's what I'm here. Yeah, there is another call, another webinar from US is there. I was supposed to attend, but I'll be attending after this. And then I don't want to miss Vasu, particularly my good friend. And my dear friends, for your kind information, Vasu is the first FDA graduate from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
You were the first, first batch.
Yeah,
First batch.
yes. Yeah.
So the Vasu, it was very,
First in the
very
country.
nice. The
First
coaching,
in the
you
country.
given very good information, and definitely you yourself is a coach. I can say the Vasu himself is a coach with so much of vast experience of more than 2 decades of training. From training, he has become the facilitator too. I'm sure, and he's a very ardent book reader. He reads a lot of book, and that is what is necessary for any trainer or anybody else. And the program is very good, excellent. Keep it up, Vasu. All the best.
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
in
God
all
bless
your
all of
future
us.
endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. See, the Linism has given the great opportunity to learn the things. Only the Linism, because we are lines, we have to feel proud as a line. Only the LCI is giving the great opportunity to line in the get all the leadership skills. No other organization gives this much of opportunities. So this is because of the fashion towards the Linism only. All the faculties are sharing their knowledge to us. There is no other aspect of the faculties, only just for satisfaction to give their services to the lines as a passion towards the Linism. That's also. Thank you very much, faculties. All the once again, my special request to you: tomorrow you have to join all at 5 o'clock only. All the faculties are going to join tomorrow, and all the guests also coming tomorrow. And please be on time by 5 o'clock. Now I request our first Vice District Governor Line Venkatanarayan sir to give his closing remarks.
You unmute your line.
Sir, doing. Sir, now you can, sir.
రావట్లేదు.
No, it's coming, sir. It's coming.
Presiding Officer Krishnareddy garu, District Governor Krishnamurthy garu, today faculty dynamic persons today. I am very happy. Jyoti Sanjay Mehta garu, Pankaj Mehta garu, Vasu Walankar garu. Very nice, sir. Today, excellent presentation. The 3 members, particularly Jyoti Ma'am, Pankaj, Vasu, a very useful topic today. And also our participants also enjoying today. And our future leaders also we are motivated. Very nice. Very thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, once again, I request all the participants to join tomorrow by 5 o'clock only. 5:30 to 6:30, your questionnaire test will be there. And afterwards, from 7 o'clock, the valedictory session will be commencing. 7 to 9:30 tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day for this LLC program. And again, on 31st, we'll have CQI second part. And first onwards, the Triple T, Train the Trainers program will be there. And you have to join all the Triple T WhatsApp group, and the details will be given in the WhatsApp. Okay. And all the participants, if you have any doubts, our faculties are there to clear your doubts. You can unmute and you can talk to them. Anybody is having doubts?